So today we're talking about communicating after a divorce. And really the only reason you would have to do that is because you have kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if you get divorced and you don't have kids,
right. You really don't have to talk to them anymore.
Just so you know, you don't have to.
Right.
Because I know a lot of people still do fight after, and there's no reason for that, because there's no reason to get a divorce if you're still going to fight.
Yeah.
So.
And this came up for me because, to be very honest and vulnerable and open,
that's how we do.
Because that's how we do it. I got into a little, I wouldn't say a fight with my ex, but just an argument this morning about our daughter and something that had happened. And he was upset with me for not telling him right away. And in all fairness, he was right. You know, I should have told him. I actually thought he knew, but we got into a little argument, and you know, we were raising our voices at each other, and I really started to think about this because this has come up many times in my life. Recently, you know, I have another girlfriend who is dealing with not being able to talk at all. I have another friend who says the ex is completely different with her than he is with everyone else. And she really wants it to be a copacetic relationship. So what's your best advice as a therapist? Because I will tell you, right after a divorce is the most difficult time.
It really is. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to hate my answer. Because it's the hardest thing to do. But here's the thing. I love, I work under the Imago theory for couples. And one of the things it talks about, one of the things they say, which I love, is everyone makes sense all the time if you listen long enough. And I love and hate that. And now let me qualify, if somebody's schizophrenic, they may not make sense if you listen. However, normal, average, everyday people, they will make sense to you if you listen long enough. But here's the thing. We don't listen. We don't listen at all.
We're just responding
to reacting.
To be right.
We're reacting, we're defending, and we're fighting. And listen, you're having trouble with them because you divorced them because you were having trouble with them. So this is somebody that you already don't communicate well with. A lot of times when people are going through divorce, I say, come to my office. They know they're getting a divorce. I'm like, no, let's keep doing therapy, because you guys are stuck together for 18 to 20 years. So, for a lifetime, let's be honest, right? I just went to my stepdaughter's wedding. Thank God, I adore her mother, but we're all close and we're all good because we have to be together still, and we will always have to be together for these kids. So I tell people sometimes to come in and work on it, and what they do in my office that they hate as well is they do the dialoguing structure, which is mirroring. When your ex calls you and they're screaming, you're gonna get nowhere if you start screaming back, defending and reacting. I promise you they're screaming for a reason. They're hurt, they're wounded, they're angry, they're upset, they're scared, right? They're scared, they're anxious, they're hurt. It's not that they're angry, something else is going on. So your best method is to mirror them. Okay, so you're furious with me that I didn't tell you about our daughter's situation. Tell me more. How could you? You can't even imagine that I didn't tell you. Tell me more. All of a sudden, when you do that, when you mirror back what you're hearing, okay, and you can even use the statement like, what I'm hearing you say is you're furious with me because I didn't tell you about our daughter. Yes, I'm furious with you, blah, 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 blah. That's what I just said. And I can't believe you're so selfish. You believe I'm completely selfish, and that's why I didn't tell you. Tell me more. Here's the thing. You're gonna find out everything they're thinking and how they're processing this information. If you can just shut your mind off, which is what the mirroring does, it allows you to close off your, that's not what happened, I thought you knew, you're such a jerk. It closes that off. And then what you'll at least get to do is you'll get a window into how they think. And if you listen long enough, what you might have heard is, I'm terrified. This child is going to be 13 years old. I'm terrified that a boy's going to get a hold of her. I'm terrified she's going to be abducted. I'm terrified she's going to be raped. I'm terrified she's going to be on drugs. I don't sleep at night. I'm worried all the time about our daughter. Wow.
Right.
That I can connect to.
Right.
Now we can calmly talk. I'm scared too. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what you're doing. Here's what I can add to this. In the future, I'd be happy to do this. So if
that's very mature, Shannon.
And it's the hardest thing you'll ever do.
Right?
It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But let's think about it. If you do the opposite, you react, you defend. He's screaming, you're screaming. You can't even tell me what he was saying.
What you're doing right now is not working.
It's not working.
Right.
It's not working. And you know what? I have to say, and it pains me to say this, but my ex does make sense to me, and I think that at times I can make sense to him if he listens long enough. Like he does make sense. If I listen long enough, at the very least, I will understand where he's coming from how he was raised, from who he is, from his education level, from where he works, from what he does for a living. I get why he's saying reacting. What he's saying. I may not agree and come from the same place because I have a completely different career, different growing up standards, different value. We were different, but I get it. And then once I get it, it's like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Can you understand where I'm coming from? And then may we find a middle place. Now, some people you're never going to be able to do this with, but I think 9 times out of 10, you can get where the other person's coming from. If you listen to them, you're going to have the best shot possible if you listen to them. And then the next stage of the dialoguing process is validating. So now your ex has gone from screaming to like, well, yeah, I just wish you would have told me. God, I'm so upset. And now you're able to validate, which is, you're making a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
I thought you knew, which is my bad. But you're making a lot of sense to me that you didn't know. You found this out late. You found this out from our daughter, and you felt so scared and so worried and so concerned, and you felt completely out of control because you couldn't protect her because you didn't have the information. You're making sense to me.
Yeah.
Which then will...
So does the other person have to participate for you to be the mirror? Do you see what I'm saying? Like
they're usually happy to scream. They're usually happy to scream.
Right.
And
so
then
it's incumbent upon you to take that first step. And that's what I think a lot of people don't do. Like, when I tell people that are asking me for advice, because Jeff and I get along very well for a divorced couple. We have a lot of respect for each other. We sit together with each other at our children's games. We go to dinners together for our children. So we have a very good relationship. Nice. And he even called me this morning after our conversation and said, I'm sorry, I did not mean to get upset with you. Right. I just want you to know how I'm feeling. And I completely got it. But if you don't have one of those relationships, I think it's important that you start to be the mature person in the relationship.
You are the only one that can do this because he's probably not watching this video. He's probably not participating in therapy with you or any of those things. So it's on you to change the cycle.
Right.
And like you're saying, do they have to participate? They'll be happy to scream and scream and scream. But what's fascinating is when you stop pushing back, they stop screaming. Yeah. So when you're not defending and you're not reacting, you're like, wow, so you're really upset with me because you believe that I did this, this, and this. All right, I'm hearing you. You're making a lot of sense to me. They're like, yeah, that's what I said, And then you can even, and then now this is big time for those of you that are like, PhD level folks. The last one is the empathy, because when you really listen and you really can validate, you really can get how they're feeling. You know what, Jeff, you must feel so out of control right now because you've been out of town. You didn't know what was going on with our child. You just heard about this. This must feel so scary. It must feel so out of control. You must feel so frustrated. I'm so sorry. I really am getting you. Right. So now you even have empathy for them, which really melts people. It's like, yeah, Suzanne, thank you. I am. I'm really scared for her.
Right.
Now we're two people who actually have some respect and care for each other. Right. Now he might be able to hear you. I hear you. I agree with what you're saying, but I wonder if you could look at this angle because this is what she shared with me. Because a lot of times there's one parent that's more in the know, right? And so to be able then to go, hey, listen, let me give you a little insider track. So I get where you're coming from, but then our daughter told me this.
Right.
And so what do you think now? How does that add up? Now what do you think we should do given that new information? You know what I mean? Yeah. Because now you can actually share that. You're not sharing that with the screaming guy.
Right.
Any day of the week. So that's one thing.
And I think at the end of the day, like a lot of, we do this in many parts of our lives, not just with our exes. We do it with,
our
coworkers. We do it with our current relationships. Yeah. We do it with, every relationship, children. And I think what the big takeaway for me, and many times, and it's so hard to do. Listen, I know this is hard. But it's to take the ego out of it. You really have to take your ego out of it. It's not about being right. It's about your children having peace between their parents.
Yes.
And there is no greater gift you can give your children than to have peace with your ex.
I have to say, I was a little brokenhearted recently because when conflict comes up, it's hard. And there was a time period for a couple years where there was just nothing but conflict with my ex. And the kids seemed like they were okay at that point. Like, you know, it's hard, but they were like old enough. They were, you know, older teenagers. And I just kind of assumed like, you know, they're mature enough to understand everything. And then there was another little bump in the road recently, and my kids were both like deer in the headlights. We're not going back there. And I was so surprised at how painful that experience had been for them. And I you get it, of course, you know, kids want their parents to get along, but I think we think more about when they're 5 and 7 and 9 and they're little and they just want to see everybody happy. But when they're old enough to say, I'm mad at dad or I'm mad at you or whatever, you kind of figure, they're
and you
good.
think they can process it a little bit better.
But man, they were like, no, we can't go back there to tension and strain and strife. And so it really, even somebody like me who's pretty conscious, I was like, wow, it really makes the difference. And then when you look at my husband, his ex-wife is so lovely, her family's so lovely, and we get along just beautifully, and the kids just love it. You can see they're so happy when we're hugging and we're telling each other we love each other, and we're all together at functions, and the kids are just beaming, and it's just so good for them. So that is the goal. The goal is to get along. So get rid of your ego. Remember, you're in a power struggle. If you're trying to get your point across and they're trying to get their point across, you're in a power struggle, and this is not going to shift. I'm giving you the tools to stop it, but if you stay here, you're done. You're never going to get anywhere. So even though you don't agree, and even though, Shannon, you understand, they're not right, they're wrong. Okay, I hear you. Doesn't matter. You still have to get where they're coming from. They need to get where you're coming from, or you'll never negotiate from there. So somebody's got to listen. Somebody's got to be able to say, you know what, I get why this is important to you.
What about in those situations where there is no, I mean, it's an illegal battle? Because I feel like, you know, I was talking to a girlfriend, and there are some people that are just so focused on making sure their ex is finding out what they're doing wrong, that the ex constantly feels like I've got to make sure that I'm, you know, documenting everything, and you know, and that's hard. I mean, I had a friend that went through that, and he like felt like he had to document everything.
And he does, and it's horrible. I mean, listen, I'm not going to trump any lawyer, any divorce lawyer. If your lawyers are telling you better document everything, you better document everything. Those are horrible situations. Those are individuals that don't understand that all they're winning. And I'm not talking about the people documenting, I'm talking about the people that are going after the other one. All they're doing is destroying their children. Like, that's the only thing they're getting. At the end of the day, the courts don't usually get it. And, like, you don't really always get what you want, but you will destroy the children effectively. So I'm really saddened by those cases.
So
I know a
sad.
lot of cases do that. And listen, a lot of times people are dealing with what we call, as therapists, like access to borderline personality, narcissistic personality, dependent personality, antisocial, aka sociopath, antisocial personality. And so when you're dealing with these kinds of issues, these kinds of people, they will never see your side. They will never hear you. They are never wrong. It's never them. There's no give and take. And so my best advice is, if you feel like you're dealing with that kind of person, do a little bit of research and see if you can figure out kind of what kind of animal you're dealing with. Because if you're dealing with borderline personality, there is a way that is going to be better. If you're dealing with a narcissist, you do need to appeal to their ego, or you'll never get anything ever. If you're dealing with a narcissist, you need to do a lot of, you know, you're making a lot of, I'm really seeing your point. I really get where you're coming from. I was just wondering on this one thing, if we could just do this. What do you think? You have to do a lot of like stroking and a lot of giving, because if you don't, you will never get anywhere. So that is another piece to this, is if you start talking to people and they go, wow, I've never experienced that. My ex and I do this, or that sounds kind of over the top, or she sounds crazy. Borderline, aka crazy, or like that. And I say that respectfully. I say that because that's how other people view them. Now, when you get into the literature, you'll understand where that borderline person's coming from. That they're scared, that they have a lot of abandonment issues, that they're very controlling because they're so afraid of losing things. So a borderline going through a divorce, they're terrified of losing their children. They're terrified of having them stolen. They're terrified of them loving the other person more, or loving the other step parent. And so once you understand that fear, you can cater to some of that fear and help them feel safer.
Yeah.
So it's really, I'm not kind of putting anybody down. I'm saying, like, if you understand where people's brain typing is, then you can understand what they need to kind of stand down a little bit, right? Like when I'm dealing with
it's really about understanding the other person, whether that's understanding where they're coming from, understanding their personality, understanding what makes them tick or what makes them respond to you. But yeah, I think it's really about taking yourself out of it and understanding where they're coming from. I mean, that's what I hear you saying.
Getting your ego out of the way. For example, the most common person I see in these kinds of situations, in difficult marriages, difficult divorces, is someone who has a shame injury. That can be any of us. You're growing up, maybe your dad always made you feel not good enough. Maybe, you were like ADD and you struggled your whole life with, getting your stuff done or getting good grades. And so you always felt ashamed, like, I'm stupid. That person in a divorce is a nightmare, because no matter what you say, they hear it as, oh, you think I'm an idiot. Right. Oh, you think I don't know how to parent. Oh, you think that I don't know what's going on with our son. Oh, you think you know more. And so they're always coming from this shame position. And so they're always attacking. And so my favorite technique with somebody who has a shame wound is something I call sweet, sour, sweet. You start with building them up. You know what? I know how smart you are. And I know that you really get our children and you know how our son is. I'm wondering if I can ask this of you, because I'm really needing help with him lately. If you could talk to him about A, B, and C, or maybe you could have a little grace with him because he's been crying a lot lately. And I know that you try so hard with him, believe me. So you see that sweet, sour, sweet. So I start letting you know I believe in you, and then I ask for the thing that's a little difficult for you or that I need you to do. And I don't say you don't do it, I just ask if you will. Right. And then the backside is, and how much I appreciate you. And believe me, I know you're a great dad, and I know how hard you try, but I just didn't know if you do this piece, and if you could, maneuver this piece, it might help our son. Right. That kind of thing. Because the person that is shame-based, they will never hear you if you say it any other way. If you say, hey, listen, our kid's really struggling, and you need to do A, B, and C, you're done. Yeah. Oh, you think I don't do that? Oh, you think, what are you saying? That I never do that? Oh, what about when I did this, and that? It's like they cannot hear or see it over their shame and their inadequacy. So you really need to speak to that inadequacy and put some salve on it first, or they literally will never hear a word that you say. Yeah. Bam, drop the mic, because that's half of America.
Right? It is true.
It's so many people.
So many people that have that shaming wound that it's crazy. And trying to communicate with that person is very, very, very difficult. I think, and you had said there was some sort of like texting, like a lot of people don't know about this. If you are dealing with someone, or if you are in a very difficult divorce situation and only can communicate by documenting everything, there is like a texting.
I think it's called talkingparents.com. And I imagine there are other systems because, it's 2018, so I'm sure 5 more people invented their own form of it. Right. But basically, call your local courthouse and find out what is the venue that they're using, and I think it might be talkingparents.com, that you can sign up for and ask your attorney, hey, this divorce is very contentious. I feel like I'm being harassed and bullied. I feel like the things that are being said over text and email is very not nice, but I don't want to talk to him. I need to say, hey, the pageant is at 2:00, or can you pick up our son at 1:30? I'm going to be running late. Can we go be assigned to this? And this is the only way that we communicate in that way. Every single line that you type and he types is documented. And the courts can go boop and print it out and hand it to the judge. So therefore, it eliminates the harassment, the bullying, and all the BS. Which also leads me to, we were just glancing at tips for texting your ex. Yeah. So one of them being, do not fight or do drama over text. Do facts.
Because it will always be read differently than how even if you're not trying to be dramatic. Just stick to the facts via text, right?
Yeah, our son is at baseball. I can be there at 4. If you can be there at 3, that would be great because he's by himself. Whatever it is, just the facts of what you need. Because really, when you think about it, you divorce this person because you don't want to be with them anymore. So why are you talking about everything else. I don't know how many people, I can't tell you how many people as a therapist that I get a little frustrated because I say to them, hey, I'm so confused. Didn't you divorce them because you didn't want to fight anymore?
Right.
And then I'm like, but then why are you still fighting? You don't have to fight with them anymore. You can say, it's 2 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock, I'm dropping this one off here, I'm picking this one up here. This is what they ate for lunch. She has the flu, here's her antibiotics. It just can be the facts. And when they engage in like, well, you're a horrible mother, you don't have to respond to that. You don't have to engage in that. You don't have to participate in that. There's no court in America that says you have to do that BS fighting. You just have to show up and pick up your child. You have to have the proper babysitter. You have to have them safe. You have to feed them. But the basics, you don't have to communicate about, well, you gave me a dirty look at the baseball game.
Yeah.
Or your girlfriend doesn't like me. Who cares?
Yeah.
He has every right to have whatever girlfriend he wants. And that's a hard thing for people. You need to know if you're going through a divorce, your control over your ex, zero. And so that's hard for people because in marriages, we do a lot of controlling. And when you go through a divorce, you cannot control them. I remember calling my attorney once. I was panicked. My ex wanted to take the kids to the Bahamas, and I'm just a scaredy cat person. And I had all these images in my mind of like, where in the Bahamas? And he didn't take them with a woman. He didn't take them with his girlfriend or wife or whatever at the time. And so it was like, well, who's going to walk in the bathroom with my little girl? Like, is she going to be safe? And I just was anxious. And I remember calling my lawyer and saying, what can I do? And he's like, is he an unfit father? And I said, no. And he goes,
you can't do anything.
You can do sign the passport and have a nice day. Call me later, and they were fine. And it's just, we just get anxious. But I say that to people, is he an unfit parent? And they're like, no. I'm like, then stop it.
Yeah.
You have no control.
Right. You have to let them parent the way they parent, and you can parent the way you parent.
Yeah, and the only difference is they did what they wanted before, but the kids probably didn't tell on them back then.
Right.
Like, Daddy let us eat gummy bears for lunch. Like, we're different. Daddy's going to parent different than mommy.
Right.
And most times, knock on wood, most times, they're okay. But we are different. So stop micromanaging, stop controlling, relinquish control, just the facts, just the details, and just the life-threatening issues are what you discuss and what you call them and say, hey, this is a problem.
And, if you can really take a step back and take your ego out of everything, not just in communication, but when you're coming up with an agreement, when you're talking about money, it's not about hurting the other person, even though a lot of people go into it thinking, I just want to hurt them. And if you can take a step back and say, what do I need out of this? Not what do I want to do against them out of this.
Right.
And I really think if you really come from a good place instead of wanting to hurt the other person, that it will be okay. Because so many people go into these divorces and they just, they fight for no reason.
But their attempts to hurt the other person always lands on the kids. You always hurt the kids.
You always do.
It never lands on the other adult. It doesn't land on the other adult. If the other adult is healthy at all, it's not going to land. They're like, I divorced you. I don't care.
Right.
But the kids do care.
Right.
So it always hurts the kids. So that's such a great point, Suzanne. Please get out of the battle.
Yeah, get out of the battle. Even if it means conceding some things.
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
White flag.
Yes.
Yeah, and save the kids.
Save the kids. Yes. That is the greatest gift you can give your children.
Yeah.
All right. So if you have any questions about today's episode, do not forget to leave us a comment. If you have any ideas, those are some great tools. Shannon, thank you. I knew you would rock this episode. We are up on podcasts. If you want to listen to us, just search What Your Friends Won't Tell You in your podcasts on your Apple and Android phone. And we're on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would really, really, really appreciate it.
And send us your ideas, because we would love to have your ideas on what you want to hear more about and what you're struggling with.
All right, thanks for watching What Your Friends Won't Tell You. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.